And the shrill girls giggle and master around him and squeal as they clutch and thrash, and he blubbers away downhill with his patch pants falling, and his tear-splashed blush burns all the way as the triumphant bird-like sisters scream with buttons in their claws, and the bully brothers hoot after him his little nickname, and his mother's shame, and his father's wickedness with the loose, wild, barefoot women of the hovels of the hills. It all means nothing at all, and howling for his milky mum for her cowl and buttermilk and cow breath and Welsh cakes and the fat birth-smelling bed and moonlit kitchen of her arms, he'll never forget as he paddles blind home through the weeping end of the world. Then his tormentors tussle and run to the Cockle Street sweet shops, their pennies sticky as honey, to buy from Miss Mavanui Price, who is cocky and neat as a puff-bosomed robin, and her small round buttocks tight as ticks, gobstoppers big as wens that rain boys you suck, brandy balls, wine gums, hundreds and thousands, licorice sweet as sick, nugget to tug and ribbon out like another red rubbery tongue, gum to glue in girls' curls, crimson cough drops to spit blood, ice cream cornets, dandelion and burdock, raspberry and cherry aid, pop goes the weasel and the wind. Gossamer Bynum high heels out of school. The sun hums down through the cotton flowers of her dress into the bell of her heart, and buzzes in the honey there, and couches and kisses, lazy, loving, and boozed in her red-berried breast. Eyes run from the trees and windows of the street, steaming gossamer, and strip her to the nipples and the bees. She blazes naked past the sailor's arms, the only woman on the dye-atomed earth. Sinbad sailor's places on her thighs, still dew-damp from the first man-growing cockcrow garden, his reverent, goat-bearded hands.
I don't care if he is common,
she whispers to her salad-day deep self.
I want to gobble him up. I don't care if he does drop his H's,
she tells the stripped and mother-of-the-world big-beamed and eve-hipped spring of herself.
So long as he's all cucumber and hooves.
Sinbad sailors watches her go by, demure and proud and schoolmarm, in her crisp flower dress and sun-defying hat, with never a look or lilt or wriggle, the butcher's unmelting ice-maiden daughter, veiled forever from the hungry hug of his eyes.
Oh, Gossamer Bynum, why are you so proud?
He grieves to his Guinness.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful Gossamer Bee, I wish that you were for me. I wish you were not so educated.
She feels his goat beard tickle her in the middle of the world like a tuft of wiry fire, and she turns in a terror of delight away from his whips and whiskery conflagration and sits down in the kitchen to a plate heaped high with chips and the kidneys of lambs. In the blind-drawn, dark dining room of schoolhouse, dusty and echoing as a dining room in a vault, Mr. and Mrs. Pugh are silent over cold, grey cottage pie. Mr. Pugh reads as he forks the shroud meat in from Lives of the Great Poisoners. He has bound a plain brown paper cover round the book. Slyly, between slow mouthfuls, he side-spies up at Mrs. Pugh, poisons her with his eye, then goes on reading. He underlines certain passages and smiles in secret.
Persons with manners do not read at table,
says Mrs. Pugh. She swallows a digestive tablet as big as a horsepill, washing it down with clouded pea-soup water.
Some persons were brought up in pigsties.
Pigs don't read at table, dear.
Bitterly she flicks dust from the broken cruet. It settles on the pie in a thin gnat rain.
Pigs can't read, my dear.
I know one who can.
Alone in the hissing laboratory of his wishes, Mr. Pugh minces among bad vats and Jeroboams, tiptoes through spinneys of murdering herbs, agony dancing in his crucibles, and mixes, especially for Mrs. Pugh, a venomous porridge unknown to toxicologists, which will scald and viper through her until her ears fall off like figs, her toes grow big and black as balloons, and steam comes screaming out of her navel.
You know best, dear,
says Mr. Pugh, and quick as a flash, he ducks her in rat soup.
What's that book by a trough, Mr. Pugh?
It's a theological work, my dear. Lives of the great saints.
Mrs. Pugh smiles. An icicle forms in the cold air of the dining vault.
I saw you talking to a saint this morning. Saint Polygarter. She was martyred again last night. Mrs. Organ Morgan saw her with Mr. Waldo.
And when they saw me, they pretended they were looking for nests.
Said Mrs. Organ Morgan to her husband, with her mouth full of fish as a pelican's.
But you don't go nesting in long combinations, I said to myself, like Mr. Waldo was wearing. And your dress nearly over your head like Polygarter's. Oh, they didn't fool me.
One big bird gulp and the flounder's gone. She licks her lips and goes stabbing again.
And when you think of all those babies she's got, then all I can say is she'd better give up bird nesting, that's all I can say. It isn't the right kind of hobby at all for a woman who can't say no even to midgets. Remember Bob Spit? He wasn't any bigger than a baby, and he gave her two. But they're two nice boys, I will say that, Fred Spit and Arthur. Sometimes I like Fred best, and sometimes I like Arthur. Who do you like best, Organ?
Oh, Bach, without any doubt. Bach every time for me.
Organ, Morgan, you haven't been listening to a word I said. It's organ all the time with you.
And she bursts into tears, and in the middle of her salty howling, nimbly spears a small flat fish and pelicans it whole.
And then, Palestrina,
says Organ Morgan. Lord Cutglass, in his kitchen full of time, squats down alone to a dog dish marked Fido, of peppery fish scraps, and listens to the voices of his 66 clocks, one for each year of his loony age, and watches with love their black and white moony, loud-lipped faces talking the earth away. Slow clocks, quick clocks, pendulum heart knocks, china, alarm, grandfather, cuckoo, clocks shaped like Noah's whirring ark, clocks that bicker in marble ships, clocks in the wombs of glass women, hourglass chimers, to-wit-to-woo clocks, clocks that pluck tunes, Vesuvius clocks, all black bells and lava, Niagara clocks that cataract their ticks, old time-weeping clocks with ebony beards, clocks with no hands forever drumming out time without ever knowing what time it is. His 66 singers are all set at different hours. Lord Cutglass lives in a house and a life at siege. Any minute or dark day now, the unknown enemy will loot and savage downhill, but they will not catch him napping. 66 different times in his fish-slimy kitchen, ping, strike, tick, chime, and tock. The lust and lilt and lather and emerald breeze and crackle of the bird praise and body of spring with its breasts full of rivering May milk means to that lordly fish-head nibbler nothing but another nearness to the tribes and navies of the last black day who'll sear and pillage down Armageddon Hill to his double-locked, rusty-shuttered tick-tock, dust-scrabbled shack at the bottom of the town that has fallen head over bells in love.
And I'll never have such loving again.
Pretty Polly hums and longs.
Now when farmers' boys on the first fair day come down from the hills to drink and be gay, before the sun sinks I'll lie there in their arms, for they're good, bad boys from the lonely farms. But I always think, as we tumble into bed, of little Willie Wee.